Okay, let's go ahead and discuss the Lesson 9-1 homework assignment. Okay, so remember, there are two types of special right triangles. One, you have the 30, 60, 90 triangle, and you have the 45, 45, 90 right triangle. Now, we said that across from 30 degrees, when looking at a 30, 60, 90, that is A. Across from 60 degrees, we set that side equal to a root 3. And then across from 90 degrees, we label that as 2A for that side, okay? And for 45, 45, 90, that's you're dealing with an isosceles right triangle, okay? So the two side lengths are congruent and those two angles must be congruent as well. So across from 45, we call that A. Across from 45, we call that A. And across from 90 degrees, we label that as A root 2. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. You know for sure that this is an isosceles right triangle, because notice that we have an X here and we have an X here. So these two segments here are congruent to each other. So therefore, this is isosceles. And since this is an isosceles right triangle, then we know we're dealing with a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. Okay? So again, label your figure. We said across from 45 is A, across from 45 is A, and across from 90 degrees, that's A root 2. So across from 45 degrees, I set X equal to A. Across from 45 degrees, here, this side has to be A as well. And again, this is an isosceles right triangle. These two segments are congruent to each other. Lastly, across from 90 degrees, we set 14 equal to A root 2. Now, note, look at this side here. A is equal to X. You have a variable equal to variable. This is not going to help you solve the problem because you have, again, a variable equal to variable. This right here, you can't work with this because, again, you have a variable equal to a variable. So there's no way you can work with these two information right now. But if we look at 14 equals A root 2, we have a variable, and that's equal to a number. So I'm going to highlight this for now. And I'm going to solve for the desired variable. I'm going to solve for A. So 14 is equal to A root 2. Now, think about this because I'm trying to get A by itself, right? We have A times a number. If I were to give you something like 3A is equal to 6 and I'm solving for the variable A, I got to divide both sides by 3. So A is equal to 2. I'm getting rid of this number. I'm getting rid of 3. And in order for me to do that, I got to divide both sides by 3 to get A by itself. That's the same idea with this. 14 is equal to A root 2. A is multiplied by a number, so I need to divide both sides by root 2 in order for me to get the variable by itself on this one side here. So A is on the right-hand side of the equation, and I have 14 divided by root 2. The trick here is you do 14 divided by 2, which is 7, and then you're going to slap on the root 2. You can take a look at the notes video on why this 7 root 2, or why is this 7 root 2? You know, this is not simplified, this is simplified. So if I'm going from here to here, I went in depth in the notes video, so you can watch that. But the trick here is 14 divided by 2, okay, so that's 7, and then you're going to slap on the root 2. So A is equal to 7 root 2. Now, if A is equal to 7 root 2, what is X equal to? Well, X is equal to 7 root 2. And I know it's saying find X and Y. There's only X's. So we only need to find x here. So no, we don't need to find, there's no y here. It's just, there's an x, no y. This is your answer. And then you can go ahead and move on. Okay? And then number 3, look, you can see that these two segments are congruent. That means it's isosceles and it's a right triangle. You're going to apply the 45, 45, 90 formula for this particular problem, okay? Over here, we got a 30, 60, 90. Because we have 30, we have 90, so that means that this angle has to be 60 degrees. So let's go ahead and label our figure. Using this rule here, across from 30 degrees, that's A. Across from 60, that's A root 3. And across from 90, that's 2A. Okay, so let's go ahead and label this across from 30 degrees. I'm going to set 7 equal to A. Across from 60 degrees, I set Y equal to A root 3, not A root 2, it's A root 3. And across from 90 degrees, I'm going to set X equal to 2A, just like what we have over here, okay? So, let's take a look at which side has the most information, which side I can work with so I can apply it to whatever I need to, look for. In this case, I'm going to find X and Y because that's, those are the two variables that exist for this problem. So I am going to find what X and Y equal to. Note that 7 is equal to A, right? If 7 is equal to A, and here's A, yes, all I'm doing is I'm just plugging it in. So it's X equals 2 times 7, that's 14. Okay, so that's what X is equal to. X is equal to 14. Now, for Y, notice that it's currently Y equals A root 3. But y'all, we know what A is equal to. A is equal to 7. So again, all I'm doing is I'm just going to replace this variable with this number. So Y is equal to 7 root 3. And that is my other answer. Okay, so that's how you solve number 2 and number 5. All right, let's see. An equilateral triangle has an altitude length of 18 feet. Determine the length of the side of the triangle. Okay, so basically, if you were paying attention to the picture proof that I did, you should be able to figure out how to do this problem, okay? So the picture proof should be on the video. So you can definitely take a look and figure out what the altitude is, and then you can, work from there. Let's see. These are the weird ones. 28. This is a square. All these angles are 90 degrees, right? So if I create this diagonal here, it's going to split this angle into two congruent halves. So how long is this angle? How long is that angle? And what type of special right triangle are you going to apply? 30, 60, 90 or 45, 45, 90, okay? And I'll give you a hint. If we just ignore this, or let me try this again. If we just ignore this triangle and focus on this triangle in particular, notice that these two segments are congruent to each other. So what does that imply? Like, what type of triangle are you dealing with here? I'll let you figure that out on your own. Okay, here we go. All right, so for number 29, we can see that we're dealing with two triangles composed as one. But it's the same idea. You're going to be doing some more steps, right? So let's take a look at this triangle over here. We have 45 degrees, 90 degrees. So that means that this angle here has to be 45. Okay, so we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. But if we look here, we don't have a lot to work with, just this x. So that means that we have to basically look at this triangle. But note that not much is labeled in the interior of the triangle, so we're going to have to do that on our own. So if this is 45 degrees, this angle has to be 45 degrees. If this here is 90 degrees, then this here has to be 90 degrees. And for sure, this has to be 45. Because note that this angle here is 90 degrees, yes? If this angle here is 90 degrees and the altitude is present, that means that this is going to split that 90 degree into two congruent halves. So really you have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label my figure. I'm going to label this triangle with the formula chart that I have. So if I say across from 45 degrees, I'm going to set x is equal to a. And across from 45 degrees over here, this side here has to be a. And then lastly, this 6 is going to be equal to a root 2. This has enough information to work with. So I have 6 equals a root 2, and I'm going to divide both sides by root 2. So I have 6 over root 2 equals a. So that is a equals 6 divided by 2 is 3. I'm going to slap on the root 2. So a is equal to 3 root 2. X is equal to 3 root 2. And then this part over here is 3 root 2. Right? So if that's 3 root 2, okay, well, let me go ahead and say that this here, if I were to look at this triangle, yes, if I were to look at this triangle here, across from 45 degrees, this side here is A. So this here is A, but we already know what A is equal to. That's 3 root 2. Okay? So to recap, X is equal to 3 root 2, and then Y is equal to A plus A, or 3 root 2 plus 3 root 2. Let's combine the coefficient together. So I have 3 plus 3. So I have 6 root 2. Or how many root 2s are there? Well, there are 3 root 2s plus 3 root 2s. It's like saying 3 dogs plus 3 dogs. So you have 6 root 2s, if that makes sense. I have 6 root 2s, and this is my answer for y. X is equal to 3 root 2. Sorry, I'm going to rewrite that as 3 root 2, and then y is equal to 6 root 2. So that's the answer, or those are the answers for 29. X is equal to 3, y is equal to 6. I do recall one problem. It's number 20. Let's go and look at 20 together. So I have 30, 90. This has to be 60. So across from 30 degrees, y is equal to a. Across from 60 degrees, x is equal to a root 3. And then lastly, across from 90 degrees, 15 is 2a. This here has information, the most information that I can work with. I have a variable equal to a number. Divide both sides by 2 here. A is equal to 7.5, or you can say a is equal to 15 root 2. Okay? Or a is equal to 15 root 2. This is a fraction that I'm leaving in simplified form here. You can give me 2 answers. They're basically the same thing. So if a is equal to 15 over 2 or a is equal to 7.5, that means that y is equal to 7.5 or 15 over 2. Okay? And then that means that x is equal to, if I replace this a with 7.5, that means that x is equal to 7.5 root 3. Or x is equal to, again, if I decide to use this, it's 15 over 2 times 3, or 15 root 3 over 2. And that is your answer those are your answers. X is equal to 15 root 3 all over 2, and y is equal to 15 over 2, or just 7.5. All right. I want to do 30. I think I'm going to do half the 30, and then I'm going to try to get you started with the other half. Okay, so 30. What you can see here is we're dealing with two right triangles, okay? We have a triangle here. It's a right triangle. And this triangle here, it's definitely a right triangle as well, because if this here is 90 degrees, that means that this here is 90 degrees as well. Okay, so that's 90. Okay, here we go. What I want you to do is I want you to focus on this particular right triangle. Ignore this triangle, and focus on this right triangle here. Label across, so this is 30, this is 90, this has to be 60, right? So this angle here has to be 60 degrees. Now, let's go ahead and label this, because across from 30 degrees, this side here has to be A. I'm going to use a different color, so I know there's a lot of blue here. I'm going to use a different color, so this here has to be A, okay? So this side here is A. Across from 30 degrees, this here has to be A. And now, across from 60 degrees, I'm going to set X equal to a root 3, which is equal to X. Okay, let me see. Yes, that's good. And then lastly, across from 90 degrees, 2 root 3 is going to equal to 2a. Let's take a look at our triangle labeled. This is A. That's not enough information to work with. This is X equals a root 3. We have a variable equal to a variable. Can't work with that. But we have a variable equal to a number here. That's perfect. Take a look at that. 2 root 3 equals 2a. I want to get this variable by itself. So in order for me to do that, I got to divide both sides by 2 here. So a on the right-hand side is equal to, I'm going to cancel the 2 2's. A is equal to root 3. So if A is equal to root 3, then that means that this side here is root 3. And this is important that you know that that side here is root 3. Okay? What is X equal to? Well, X is equal to a root 3, and A is root 3. So that means that I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to replace this A with this information. So essentially, it's A times root 3, or root 3 times root 3, which is equal to X. Now, root 3 times root 3 is the same thing as saying root 9, or 3. So X equals 3, right? So if X is equal to 3, well, I don't know. That's it. I found what X is equal to. Now let's go ahead and figure out what Y is equal to. All right. Now, remember I told you to keep this in mind right here. So this side here is root 3. Now, just get rid of this A equals root 3. Why? Because you're basically going to have to relabel this figure, because it's not A over here, it's just root 3. And let me show you. So this is 60 degrees, this is 90 degrees, and then this is root 3. So, and this is 30 degrees, right? So remember, we had this side be A when we were looking at this particular right triangle, right? But look at this, across from 30 degrees, this side here is now A. This side is no longer A, it's just root 3. Because if I say across from 60 degrees here, this root 3 is actually a root 3. Okay? So then, and don't forget, this Y here is A. So that's Y. So then use this to figure out what Y is equal to. I will let you figure that out on your own. Okay? All right. Just to clarify where this 5 root 2 is, this 5 root 2 is talking about this side here. If you were thinking it was on this side, then the 5 root 2 should be written outside of this figure, right? So just like this X. So this X is this side, and this 5 root 2 is this side, okay? So this is a big figure. I want you to think small. So we have x, this is 90. This segment here is... Actually, no, I didn't realize there's a y here. Okay, I'm going to start over. But again, this is x and this is 5 root 2. Now, look at this. If we look at this figure here, if this is 5 root 2, this here has to be 5 root 2, correct? So we're dealing with a isosceles right triangle. We are dealing with an isosceles right triangle. So this is a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. So label your figure, figure out what A is equal to, and then you can figure out what to do with this triangle. Because if I look at this, this is 45, this has to be 45 as well, and then this here has to be 45 as well, okay? So let's think. So across from 45, this here is A. Oh, I got to use a different color. This is A, and then this here has to be A, right? So if A is 5 root 2, and then across from 90 degrees, that's A root 2, right? So plugging this in, y is equal to 5 root 2 times root 2, because I'm replacing A with 5 root 2. So 5 times 1 is 5, root 2 times root 2 is just 2, so y is equal to 10. Y is equal to 10. And great. Now what I want you to do is take a look at this figure. So that little small figure here, this is x, this is 5 root 2, here's a 90 degrees, that's 45, that's 45. So you can go ahead and figure out what x is equal to, okay? Label your figure. So you're going to have to relabel this and figure it out, okay? I will let you try this on your own, and then perhaps you should try this on your own. It looks like you have a 45, 45, 90 right here, and then this is a 30, 60, 90, okay? You can't expect me to do all the problems with you or give you a hint on all the problems. I encourage you to take a look at your notes, use your resources if possible, and try on your own, okay? I encourage you to try these problems on your own without having to make me do all the problems, okay? Each triangle in the figure is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Find x. Okay. So I believe the best approach is to work with this triangle and then get to this triangle. So you're going to do multiple things to get to that step. So I can start you off. We know that this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle because we have 45, 90. So this has to be 45. So this here has to be A. This here has to be A. And then across from 90 degrees, that's A root 2, right? So 6 is equal to A root 2. If I divide both sides by root 2, the trick here is 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then you're going to slap on the root 2. So 3 root 2. And then that's going to equal to A, right? So A is equal to 3 root 2. And then you're going to look at this triangle. It's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. You're going to have to relabel, okay? And then work your way down to get to this part here. All right, 40, find x, y, and z, and the perimeter. So you're adding all the sides here. So this perimeter of the trapezoid of P, Q, R, S. Okay, so it's P, Q, R, S. So you're talking about if you figure out this side here, plus this side here, plus this side here, plus this side here. Or let me rephrase that. It's this side plus this side plus this side plus that side to figure out the perimeter, okay? Where do you begin? I would begin here because you have, if you focus on this particular triangle, you have a side length here, and there's an angle. So I think you can work from here to get to wherever you need to, figure out. Alrighty. Oh, and by the way, don't forget, this is a parallelogram. Okay, my hint here is since this is a parallelogram, remember opposite sides are congruent. So if this is x, this has to be x. And if this here is 10, okay, y has to be, I just want to verify with the key if y is equal to 10. Yep, there you go, y is equal to 10. Because again, it's a parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent. So this is 10, this has to be 10. This has to be 10. Okay? So that's all for today's homework help video. Again, I encourage you to take a look at your notes and then challenge yourself. I encourage you to try the harder problems on your own. Okay? All right, see you next time.